Larissa Anderson has never beaten the Sooners. She'll turn to Marissa McCann in the circle. Missouri really without a clear ace this year in the absence of Lauren Krings, who moved on to graduation, and they'll go to the sophomore to start.
Yeah, they're looking really for McCann to step up, step into that ace role. She started the Friday-Sunday games against Kentucky in their first SEC series, and they're really looking for her to step up. She's got to get ahead of hitters in order to be effective against Oklahoma.
A lot of work required to be effective against Oklahoma. Top 5 hitters, all with OPSs over 1,200. Gabby Garcia has been fantastic in the cleanup spot, the freshman for the Sooners. A packed house already. More people still making their way in. 61 degrees and very windy, gusting up into the 35-mile-an-hour range in the early evening in mid-Missouri. McCann fires in ball 1 at 5:02 local time. Scott Mayer is our home plate umpire. Tatum Stolzing at first base. Dave Reinecker at third. And Abigail Dayton up in the count. 1 ball and no strikes.
See McCann, she's going to hit mid-60s, but she throws a rise ball to all 4 quadrants, so she's able to kind of get hitters to swing outside the zone.
Hasn't been far away. Now 3 balls and no strikes. She certainly wanted the first one and the third one.
And that's something that can happen against this OU offense. They're so powerful. They can put the ball out of the park at any time, that the pitchers are trying to be so perfect and not necessarily kind of coming in a little bit more and relying on your defense.
And a 4-pitch walk to Dayton, who looks right into her first base dugout, getting the Sooners fired up. Downside, of course, for McCann is if she's afraid of the Oklahoma power, well, they really only get more powerful after Dayton.
Every single person in this Oklahoma lineup is dangerous, and as a pitcher, you just kind of have to embrace that and go straight at them. You know, softball's hard. Hitting a softball is very hard, so you got to make them earn it.
Ellie McEnroe-Marinas takes the first McCann strike of the evening. Redshirt freshman who missed all of last season. Had an injury before the year. Comes in with a 9-game hitting streak, including multiple hits in 5 straight games. Couple of home runs, couple of doubles against Arkansas last weekend. Count is 1 ball and 1 strike. So your excellent numbers across the board, and you see the C on her chest. A lot of roster turnover for Oklahoma, so even if she hadn't been in a game, being in her 2nd year in the program makes her just about a veteran on this team. Fisted down the left field line, fair ball toward the corner. Dayton holds up at second with Cahalan over to cut it off. A walk and a bloop single, and Oklahoma has 2 on, nobody out.
It's a good pitch from McCann, trying to come up and in. She gets her jammed, and she's strong enough to just kind of lift that over Cara Daly at third base there.
So here's Cassidy Pickering. The 2 through 5 hitters in Oklahoma's lineup, all underclassmen. 2 sophomores, a redshirt freshman, and a true freshman. Pickering, the sophomore, takes a strike. Freshman All-American a year ago. Hit 12 homers, had an OPS over 1,200. This season, the OPS is even better. And if anything, Patty Gasso was talking about her and Ella Parker as kids who haven't even fully gotten going yet, who are dealing at least to some degree with the pressure that comes with that great freshman season. But you look at her numbers, 1410 OPS. If Cassidy Pickering hasn't gotten going, I wouldn't want to be somebody she faces in the second half of the year.
Well, not even the OPS, just her batting average in general. She's seeing a lot of success at the plate.
Couldn't hold up her swing, and Marissa McCann gets a big first strikeout.
It's a great job by McCann after getting the first 2 runners on, coming right back at that number 3 hitter, getting ahead in the count 0-2, and then coming straight at her with the strikeout pitch, a little bit out of the zone, and gets her to chase.
So now it's Gabby Garcia. High in the air, the wind's blowing out to right, to the wall. It is out of here. Making a 14-game hitting streak for Gabby Garcia, her 9th home run in that stretch. And Oklahoma takes a 3-0 lead in the top of the first.
Gabby Garcia has been on an absolute tear these past couple of games, seeing the ball so well. You see McCann leaves the ball up, and if there's one thing you can absolutely not do against this OU offense is leave the ball up. If you're going to miss, you're going to have to miss low, and Gabby Garcia made McCann pay with that one.
Ella Parker is next for Oklahoma. A bunch of powerful lefties in this lineup with the wind whipping out to right field, so just plays into the Sooners' hands even more. And to that point, obviously you don't want to leave it up against Garcia at any time, but especially when the wind is blowing the way it is this evening.
Right, Gabby Garcia is a threat to put that ball out of the park at any point, especially if she can pull that ball. So, but with the wind blowing out as it is, that ball carried. You saw it get up, and you saw the wind kind of take it.
Parker, the sophomore, 3rd-team All-American last year, led the team as a true freshman, hit .415 and 13 homers. Began this season with an 11-game hitting streak. That included 8 multi-hit games, 11 extra base hits. Was the SEC Player of the Week a couple of times in February. But she has cooled off of late. Last 8 games, she's 2 out of 16. Top Purdue second base, handled by Sophie Smith for the out. Smith, the freshman second baseman. Lineup having to be shuffled around a bit, in part because of the absence of Abby Hay, who is labeled day-to-day with an undisclosed injury, but not ruled out for the remaining couple of games in this series. We'll play at 2 o'clock Central tomorrow and finish it out at noon on Sunday. Strike 1 to Sydney Sanders. McCann goes off speed. She's thrown a couple of good breaking balls. 0-2.
McCann, really her go-to pitch, her strikeout pitch last year was this changeup that she has. She kind of has it on a string, can pull it back. It looks the same as her drop ball, and it really throws the hitters off balance. We didn't see her use it much against the first 3 or 4 hitters for Oklahoma. I think you're going to start seeing that a lot more.
Another foul off the first base side. Sanders was out in front, but gets a piece. In contrast to Oklahoma, which also sort of had a dearth of veteran pitching, Missouri, in the absence of, or the departure of Lauren Krings, did not dip into the portal for a high-profile transfer pitcher, choosing to entrust mostly Marissa McCann and Sierra Harrison, with Taylor Pennell expected to handle some innings at the back end of the bullpen, though she has not been at her best recently. Sanders chased it. The appeal down to first, and Tatum Stolting, first base umpire, says she went around. McCann strikes out too, but Oklahoma does the damage. Who else but Gabby Garcia? It's been her world in March, and she gets a pitch up and takes it out to right with the wind blowing that way. It was always leaving the yard. A 3-run shot for the freshman Garcia. Sooners on top early. Sam Landry spotted to a 3-0 lead for Oklahoma as we go to the bottom of the first inning in Columbia. First-year Sooner, played her first 3 seasons at Louisiana, got in the transfer portal kind of late. Oklahoma had a spot available, and boy, has that worked out for everybody. 69 strikeouts against just 6 walks, minuscule earned run average. And she pumps a strike past Julia Crenshaw at the top of the Missouri lineup. Landry, the reigning SEC pitcher of the week, tossed a combined 11 1/3 scoreless innings with 10 strikeouts. And only allowed 7 base runners against Arkansas last weekend at Fayetteville. Had a complete game win in the series opener and saves in the next couple of games. So no surprise, Patty Gasso told us she's feeling healthy again after she did not pitch in the first SEC series against South Carolina. Strike 3 called. Landry starts with a 3-pitch strikeout of Julia Crenshaw, Missouri's hottest hitter.
You see Landry throws the ball really hard. She's got a great drop ball and then comes back after she gets Crenshaw down 0-2 with this changeup. Kind of freezes Crenshaw on that changeup right down the middle.
Madison Walker now. Kara Daly, Taylor Ebbs, Stefania Abrascato, Madison Updegrove, Sophie Smith, Kaylee Langer, and Claire Cahalan round out the Missouri lineup. Walker has a team-high 12 homers this year. First pitch out of the zone from Landry. And of course, Patty Gasso has emphasized, not just to us, but I think anybody who asks, that her biggest concern at this point is pitching, and more specifically, those free bases. Ground ball to second, taken by Agbayani. And Walker is retired, 2 gone.
Well, I think we saw it in the top half of this first inning. If you get walks, if you can put runners in scoring position, that what could have been a single-run home run turns into this 3-0 lead. And what you have to do as a pitcher is make sure you're getting ahead, make sure you're not giving up those free bases. And Coach Gasso was really big on that when we talked to her about what they could improve on.
Outside for a ball to Kara Daly, who was Missouri's best hitter last weekend and into this week over the course of Mizzou's home opening non-conference tournament. Inside a ball. Daly hit over 500, a couple of homers, 3 doubles, 11 batted in over the home opening weekend for Mizzou. 3-0. So all of a sudden, after starting with 5 strikes out of 6, Sam Landry missing the zone a little bit.
See Sam Landry, she's throwing mid to high 60s. She's got really good drop ball that she's going to throw to both sides of the plate. And she's really good at bringing in that changeup to kind of throw the hitters off balance in the box.
Strikeout of Crenshaw, ground out to second for Walker. Landry's 3-1 pitch to Kara Daly. Out in front. There's the mix of speeds, and the count is full. Strike 3 called. Landry comes back from 3-0 down on Kara Daly for the strikeout. A pair of punchies for Landry in a 1-2-3 inning. Oklahoma cruising after 1. The conversation is the growth of the sport since she took over at Oklahoma in the mid-90s, and she's been as or more important than any other individual person in the growth of softball, kind of, you know, maybe the Pat Summitt of softball, and she's been able to coach even longer than Coach Summitt did, and continue to build this. And she's got the best team she's ever had over the last 4 years, 5 years. She's taken this to a totally new level.
Well, and she's really seen, when we talked to her earlier this week, she really talked about, early in her career, if they had 200 people at a game, that she was excited about that. And now you look out at these crowds, and you have stadiums selling out for these softball games. She mentioned at her new stadium, they're having, 4,500 people in their stadium, standing room only. You see the berm out there earlier when we started. It's just so impressive to see how this game has grown.
8-time national champions. The first one was in 2000. Since then, they've won the remaining 7 since 2013. Ground ball sent to second base by Agbayani and handled by Smith for the out. Also the runner-up in 2012 and 2019. So the last time they missed a Women's College World Series finals was in 2018, because of course 2020 is kind of a different story.
It's got to be rough to be that 2018 team now after this, this almost decade of dominance and how they've come in, and they've just, you expect to see them at the World Series.
There's Florida State in 18. Who won the national championship. UCLA then won it in 19 over Oklahoma. And nobody else has won it since. Emerling takes down 2-0.
Well, and where you've seen McCann be the most successful in these first, inning and 1 out is when she's getting ahead of the hitters. When she gets behind the hitters, she's going to have to miss right over the plate, and that is dangerous with OU.
Walker called off by Smith, who makes this tumbling catch. Just snow-coned it in the edge of the webbing, fighting the wind, fighting the sun in shallow right. Would have been a fair ball as well by the time the wind blew it back.
This is a great catch by Smith here at second base. She has to come a pretty long ways over there, calls off Walker, her first baseman, has to kind of play a little dance with the first base umpire over there, and makes a great catch.
Brings up Sydney Barker in the 9-hole for Oklahoma. Mizzou baseball is home tonight as well. They're getting underway in about 40 minutes against Ole Miss. And Taylor Stadium and Oklahoma fans might not remember from the Big 12 days, probably the windiest place in all of Columbia, up on top of a hill. If that's how much the wind is affecting a pop-up here, I can only imagine.
Well, in Taylor Stadium, that wind could be blowing out to right and on one pitch, and the very next pitch be blowing out to left, and you're just never going to know. And you're getting a little bit of that here tonight with how crazy the wind is. That's hard for outfielders, but really hard for those high fly balls.
If they tracked dropped pop-ups, on or within 10 or 20 feet of the infield, Mizzou would definitely lead the country in every year in baseball. Not necessarily because they're way worse at catching pop-ups, that just the wind is brutal on those guys. Foul back by Barker, 1-2.
It is brutal. I think at some points you can look to the outfield and you can have the ball, you have flags blowing out to left field and blowing out to right field at the exact same time.
Yeah, you look out across the SEC
Yes.
flags span from basically straightaway right to straightaway left. They're a little ways away from each other, and you'd really never know. 13th start of the year for the true freshman Barker. And she takes strike 3 called over the outside. So McCann, after giving up the 3-run homer to Garcia in the first, bounces back with a 1-2-3 inning in the second, giving her bats a chance to get going. Oklahoma, the first team in the history of Division I softball to four-peat. First pitch swinging, and a rollover to Sanders at first by Taylor Ebbs. One away.
Well, and part of that can be intimidating for a team to face. And when we talked to Coach Anderson earlier this week, she mentioned that they kind of have to just embrace it. They have to embrace that competitiveness and really just kind of go into it. If you want to be the best, you got to beat the best. So you can't be intimidated by who they are and what they do, being this four-peat college, world champion. They really have to just embrace it. And the game doesn't care if you've won 4 or 5 national championships in a row. Like, the game doesn't care.
30 straight wins for the Sooners going back to last season. Stefania Abrascato takes the ball 1-1. That was a 9-3 defeat against Florida on June 3rd of last year in Oklahoma City. Of course, OU, on top of everything else, also owns the Division I winning streak record, a mark they shattered. Won 71 games in a row from February 2023 to March of last season. And 14 of their 27 wins this year have been run rules. including a few no-hitters. One of them on Wednesday against East Texas A&M, an 8-0 5-inning victory. 1-2 from Landry. Wave and a miss by Abbruscato. 5 up and 5 down for the Oklahoma right-hander, who has 3 strikeouts.
Landry doing a great job of keeping the Missouri hitters off balance. She throws really hard, and then she comes back with her off-speed changeup pitch. Even if it's right down the middle of the plate, because they're gearing up to hit this ball that's coming at them hard, that off-speed pitch is really going to throw them off.
Strike to Madison Updegrove, true freshman from here in Columbia. 264 with a couple of home runs to start her college career. And kindly for the local fans who wanted to see her, she waited until getting to the home part of Missouri's schedule to hit a couple of home runs in a 5-game stretch.
Wanted to make sure she had all of her fans in the stands, so to see that first college home run.
Slow tapper back to the mound. Landry retires Updegrove, and with her the side. 6 up and 6 down for Sam Landry with a trio of punch-outs. She and the Sooners in command after 2. Missouri pitching over the last 6 games has improved quite a bit from where it was before that. That's a 6-game winning streak that encompasses the Mizzou Invitational against South Dakota State, Princeton, Michigan, Quinnipiac, then Kansas City and Illinois Sunday and Tuesday. So certainly a lower caliber of competition than what Mizzou faces in the SEC, and for that matter, what Mizzou faced in a really difficult non-conference. Dayton gulfs one foul down the right side for a strike. But nonetheless, it's at least what Larissa Anderson would have wanted out of playing a slightly easier weekend, because she said to us, you know, if I had it to do over again, I would have made a much easier non-conference schedule. Or maybe much is overstating it, but at least a couple more games that we'd feel confident about winning, just to not have to worry about the 500 cutoff for postseason eligibility. So that was an opportunity to kind of get right.
Right, and I think, you know, Mizzou has the number 4 hardest schedule in the nation. So when we talk to Coach Anderson, you obviously want to get your team ready for postseason play. But when you have a young team, when you have a pitching staff that hasn't been, you know, tested as much as they have in the past, you're missing your ace from last season. That's a really hard thing to get those pitchers to go in and be successful. And then, you know, we saw it against that Kentucky series with Mizzou. They hit well enough to win those games, and their pitchers in the circle were not nearly as good as Coach Anderson needed them to be.
1-2 to Dayton. Another first-year Sooner. There are a number of transfers on this team because Oklahoma had to reload. Dayton spent the last 2 years at Utah. All-America last season. .431 average, OPS over 1,100. McCann's 2-2 delivery. Dayton to short, taken by Updegrove. Rocket throw from a sidearm slot, and Dayton retired. It almost took Madison Walker's glove into the dugout.
Almost took her foot off the bag as well. You can see Mizzou's had to shift up their defense with Abby Hay having to sit out this game, and moving Updegrove, who's been playing second base, over to shortstop, which is where she played in high school, but still it's just a little bit different of an angle for that throw. You know, Madison Walker has been playing third base, so just a little bit of a different look for both of them.
What a way. McCann's retired 5 straight Sooners going back to that first inning, but Gabby Garcia made the most of the rally for OU with a 3-run homer. Should say 6 straight Sooners, actually, because there was 1 out at the time of the home run. Since then, 3 ground outs, a pop-up, and a couple of strikeouts for McCann. Mackimo Marinas had a singular first time. And the count 1 ball and 1 strike. The redshirt freshman captain. McCann settled in well, to be fair, after a start that could have easily shaken her up.
You see her using her, really relying on this off-speed pitch that she has and kind of trying to keep these hitters off balance, so you don't want them sitting back on any of the pitches that you throw hard. Even with the break, it's still, there's such good hitters, such good hand-eye coordination, such a presence in the box that you're really going to have to rely on changing speeds to kind of throw them off.
2 balls, 2 strikes on McEnroe Marinas. Now a 10-game hitting streak for her after her first inning single. Off the end of the bat into shallow center. Langer coming on the dive, makes the catch. A second straight. Great play from the Missouri outfield. 2 down for Langer.
Langer's so good defensively for the Tigers. That's why she's out there in center field. You're going to see her offensive numbers, not necessarily what you want from your center fielder, but that is exactly why she's in the lineup. She does such a good job in the outfield. She commands that entire outfield. She gives everyone a lot of confidence out there.
I suppose the first diving catch was, first of all, an infielder, and second of all, maybe less a great play and more a hang on for dear life for Sophie Smith. Still a good catch
Still
at the
a good
end.
catch. It's a lot harder than it looks out there with the wind and the sun. That sun is going to play some tricks on him as well.
Here's Cassidy Pickering, who struck out back in the first inning. Frustration growing a little bit with Scott Mayer strike zone.
See Coach Anderson talking to Crenshaw there, kind of like, you got to push that out, right? So trying to steal a couple strikes there. That ball was a little bit outside, but if Crenshaw can kind of get out around that ball and bring it back in, she can steal a few strikes from McCann.
Pickering golfs one into left. Out goes Updegrove, and the side is retired. A second straight 1-2-3 inning for McCann, who set down 8 in a row since a 3-run Oklahoma first, but she needs some help from the offense. Now 4 SEC schools who were in the Women's College World Series a season ago. Of course, at the time it was 2. Florida and Alabama. Texas and Oklahoma joined the league. They were the top 2 of the top 3, I should say, in the country again coming into this year. Oklahoma was number 3, which shows you the respect for Patty Gasso. Partially the transfer portal, so there were plenty of new players to the Sooners who were known commodities. But all they lost after last year, they still said, well, they knock her down to 3. Even that, it turned out, was disrespectful. Swing and a miss by Sophie Smith. Oklahoma, the only remaining unbeaten, 27-0. Have been some close shaves. Went to extra innings 3 times in the non-conference. San Diego State, Long Beach State on that first road trip out to California. And then against Bowling Green, the beginning of this month in the home opening weekend for the Sooners. And 5 of their 6 SEC runs so far have been decided by 3 runs or fewer, including 3 one-run victories over South Carolina in their first ever SEC series. Smith stays alive. Now, Landry didn't pitch in that series a couple of weekends ago against South Carolina, so you can understand why a couple of those games were 10-9.
Yeah, and I think that's why Coach Gasso was really looking at her pitchers, right? She needs them to be better in the circle, not give up a lot of walks, not give up those base runners. Because softball is now, they have big hitters. Every team has big hitters, right? So at any point, this ball can go out of the park. It's, you know, it's a lot shorter. You got the wind blowing out. So if you put runners on, it just makes the offense so dangerous.
See Landry in the top 9 of the SEC in all of those categories. Those numbers have gone up. Well, not the ERA or the opponent batting average, but the strikeouts on the rise already. 1-2. Just missed inside. 2 balls, 2 strikes on Smith. 3 punch-outs for Landry and 3 ground balls. Nothing has left the infield. Smith waves over. 4 strikeouts for Landry, 1 away in the 3rd.
Well, what Landry does so well is she sets up these hitters for these strikeout pitches. You see her throw a lot of off speed. She's coming. You have to know exactly what you're looking for. And what you can't do as a hitter is get behind in the count with her. You can't get down to where you're having to guess what she's going to throw you.
Haley Langer bunts back toward the circle. Barehand Landry got her by a step. Big play for Sam Landry, who has not allowed a base runner yet. And she has 2 down in the 3rd.
Such an athletic play by Landry. Hopping off there. The third baseman has to field that. Landry's going to be safe.
Here's Claire Cahalan. Not moving her feet on the first pitch. Takes a strike, and the crowd didn't like it. Do you like that little tongue waggle from Landry into catcher Emmerling? She's like, yeah, that was a pretty good play. Yeah.
Hey, look at that.
Bella, remember that time that you said I wasn't athletic enough getting out to field my position? Yeah, eat some of that.
Sometimes pitchers have to prove themselves, right? So, you know, no one wants them to catch the fly ball. They're always getting called off out there. So to prove that, hey, I'm athletic. Look at this. I can field this ball and throw her out.
You know, Pat McAfee started doing the punters are people too thing.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a little bit of that with pitchers. We don't talk about it in the same way because everybody views pitchers as really important as opposed to sort of peripheral in the way that punters are. But in terms of them being treated as kind of different than everyone else, I think that's maybe true here as well.
Well, we would always get a laugh out of it, right? We'd always make sure our pitcher wasn't going to field that fly ball. You know, you'd run in from the shortstop or left fielder could run in and call her off because they didn't want her fielding that ball.
Yeah, I love when there's a pop-up caught right on the pitching rubber.
Yes.
Literally exactly.
Where the pitcher was, where she started.
Which sometimes could be a difficult transition for high school seniors up to college freshmen because high school seniors who pitch at this level were also the best at catching pop-ups in almost every case. Cahalan stays alive, 1-2.
Yeah.
Landry with another 1-2. Who was the weirdest pitcher you ever played with?
That is
maybe dangerous because you might be friends now. They become normal now post playing, and so you don't want to offend them.
I always say pitchers aren't normal. That's okay. I pitched in high school, so I can claim that as well. But pitchers aren't normal. You have to have a different mindset. Look how close you are. You're throwing. By the time you let go of the ball, you know, you're 35 feet away from a hitter who can hit a line drive right back at you. You got to be a little different, right? You got to have a little no fear going into the circle.
Especially in the case of Landry, rare pitcher not wearing a mask still in 2025. Time called. She seems to have just an enormous amount of confidence in the circle, too, as evidenced by a couple of pitches she would have really wanted in this inning, that last one included, and she just kind of gives that wry smile, takes her little walk around the circle.
That's a definite senior in the circle out there, right? She's got a lot of experience. She's got a lot of confidence in herself, and you have to have that as a pitcher. You can't have any doubt in your mind.
Payoff to Cahalan. To first, awkward for Sanders, race to the bag, Cahalan is safe. Missouri has its first base runner, maybe its first hit. Cahalan aboard with 2 down in the 3rd.
Great at bat by Cahalan. She fouls off a couple pitches, really tough pitches, takes some balls that were just outside the zone. She has a lot of spin on this ball, which really led it to kick off her glove and allow Cahalan to get there.
Not poorly played by Sanders, just couldn't quite glove it cleanly. She gets the error. A little bit of a tough luck error, but, you know, most official scorers will tell you they want the first hit to be clean because you just never know, and certainly the way Sam Landry is pitching so far this evening, you never know. Here's Julia Crenshaw, who struck out on 3 pitches against Landry to open the home first. Crenshaw has been easily Missouri's best hitter this season. Leads in average, leads in OBP, leads in slugging. 1-1. Outside corner, strike 2.
Landry doing a great job being effective with her changeup and being able to throw it for a strike. So it's not just a throwaway pitch to keep them off balance. She can also throw it for a strike.
Two and 2. Crenshaw waits on it and rockets one into left. Cahalan into third. Control gives her the stop sign. Crenshaw moves up behind into second. Missouri has its first hit and 2 in scoring position for Madison Walker.
Great piece of hitting by Crenshaw here. We saw in her first at-bat, out on 3 straight pitches, does a great job coming back in her second at-bat, making sure she gets a good pitch. She's looking for this off-speed pitch, takes it and drives it right down the left field line.
I think maybe that's part of the approach for Missouri hitters if they're feeling a little overwhelmed by Sam Landry the first time, that you just start to sit on a particular pitch or a particular speed or a particular location, something to narrow it down.
That's what they're going to have to do to be successful against her. She's such a good pitcher. She throws so many, like she throws a great break drop ball, she throws a great rise ball, and she's got this great changeup. So if you can sit on a changeup that she's going to throw into the zone, that's where they're going to see their most success.
Jennifer Rocha, the pitching coach, out to visit with Landry. First-year Sooner, who spent her first 3 years at Louisiana, entered the portal in late June because her head coach, Jerry Glasgow, departed for Texas Tech. And Oklahoma had a roster spot open in part because they were among the schools recruiting former Stanford ace and National Pitcher of the Year, Nigeri Kennedy, who ultimately committed to Glasgow at Texas Tech, where she's been fantastic again. But Landry has been at least comparably good for Oklahoma, especially because she's faced tougher competition than Kennedy has this year. Pitch is high for a ball. And it feels like Landry is starting to really establish herself, especially with last weekend in Fayetteville, as Oklahoma's ace. Maybe not going to be an ace who throws 15-plus innings every weekend, but a clear top option. Because it was a pretty even spread of innings among certainly the top few Oklahoma pitchers in the early going this year. Some of that was Landry's health.
When we talked to Coach Gasso early in the week, she said, we're going to see Landry a lot. And then after that, it's really going to have to be on a case-by-case basis, right? So all hands on deck, really going to have to break down the Missouri lineup to see which pitcher is going to be best for them.
She said Landry could and would throw all weekend if she asked her, or maybe even if she just let her. But that's not the way that Patty Gasso wants to approach things anymore. Made that decision. Not going to ride one pitcher to that degree. 1 and 2 on Walker. 2 in scoring position. Walker back toward the middle. Tough play. Garcia on the move to retire the side and save the 0 for Sam Landry. Missouri puts 2 in scoring position but does not score. And Gabby Garcia, who's accounted for all 3 of the runs so far, will lead off in the 4th for Oklahoma. McCann, and it's always painful to leave runners at second and third, obviously, but from a Missouri standpoint, it feels all the more damaging in a game like this where they didn't get anybody on base until an Oklahoma error allowed Cahalan to reach, and then the Crenshaw double. They might not have another runner in scoring position the whole game. You don't know.
Yeah, that was a really crucial time for Madison Walker to kind of step up. She hit the ball really well. Gabby Garcia, who we're going to see offensively here, but made a phenomenal play at shortstop and made it look easy and like it's an everyday play. But Madison Walker hit that ball hard, and she made a great play over at shortstop.
Garcia, the 3-run homer out to right back in the first inning. That's all the scoring, because McCann has really settled in fantastically well for Missouri at this point. Since Garcia last came up, 8 Sooners in a row have been retired.
McCann definitely did not have her best stuff in that first inning. She came out, you know, she gave up some walks and then she left the ball up to Garcia. And Garcia is going to she's going to make you pay for that. So McCann since then has really settled in. She's been getting ahead of the hitters, really throwing her changeup and her off-speed pitches a little bit better, more in the zone to kind of tempt those OU hitters.
Two-1. Rip foul up first. Abby Garcia is so relaxed at a plate. She's singing along to the faux organ playing in the stadium. I'd be relaxed too. Had a 14-game hitting streak with 9 home runs over that span. Rip towards second, but snared by Smith. Even Garcia's outs are rockets, but it's 9 in a row retired by McCann.
If you're Marissa McCann, you're definitely going to take that out. You see Garcia absolutely destroy this ball just right at Sophie Smith out there at second base.
Garcia over her last 14 games has an OPS over 2,000. If you did that in a video game, you would go to the settings menu and you would turn up the difficulty.
Yes.
Garcia's calling the SEC office. Like, you guys got anybody
Right.
tougher?
Those are video game numbers. That's happening right now to an actual freshman in the SEC.
Here's Ella Parker. 1 ball, 1 strike. Parker granted his second her first time. Mentioned she has been in a bit of a slump. Now 2 for 17 over her last 9 counting tonight without an extra base hit. And she couldn't hold up strike 2. But it's important to note that she's walked 11 times over that stretch, so her OBP is still around 500, even during her quote-unquote slump. A lot of kids would love that slump.
Well, that shows that she's still seeing the ball well, right? She's not swinging at balls out of the zone. She's not trying to stretch her zone. She's still seeing the ball well. It's just sometimes that happens. That's softball, right? So it's going to happen sometimes where you're going to hit the ball right at somebody like we saw with Garcia, or you're going to just not have it. You know, softball's a game of inches, and the difference between a home run and a pop fly is not that much.
2 balls and 2 strikes now on Parker. Hard hit to short, handled by Updegrove, and Parker retired. Sort of case in point. That's a good swing and well-hit ball, but just right at Updegrove, and she handled it well.
Good hard-hit ball. Updegrove makes a good play. You see her over there getting more comfortable at shortstop, getting rid of that ball quickly over to Madison Walker at first.
Feels like Cara Daly's probably not going back to shortstop.
It's looking pretty good for Madison Updegrove out there. She looks really smooth. She's kind of got her feet under her now. She played a little bit of shortstop early in the year, and you could tell she wasn't quite as comfortable yet and had made that shift to second base. But you see her out there now after she's gotten a lot more comfortable, and she's looking very smooth.
And sometimes it just takes, you know, something out of the coach's control to prompt switching things up in a way that ends up working. 1 ball, no strikes on Sydney Sanders. Missouri knows that from relatively recent history at shortstop. So what made me think of it is when Braxton Burnside had that early season injury. What, that would have been 2021 probably? The last year she was at Mizzou in the end before she transferred to Arkansas. And it brought basically 0-star recruit from nowhere, Iowa, Brooke Wilmus, off the bench to become one of the better players in the history of Missouri softball.
Sometimes you just need that chance, right? You just need that opportunity to get out there and prove yourself.
I think that was farther back even than 21, now that I think about it.
I think you're right. I think it was before, definitely before the 2020 season.
Right, it must have been 19.
Yeah.
Or even 18. Was that the interim, the Gina Fogan? I'm gonna have to look it up now. This is what I get for bringing something up
Right, that you didn't have.
that I didn't have already. 3 balls, 1 strike. Either way, it did happen that way. Burnside really did get hurt, and Brooke Wilmus really did come in. That was a real story.
We just don't know what year
I just don't know what year it was.
Good pitch.
Sanders struck out her first time, way ahead at 3-1. McCann has only walked one batter. It was the very first of the game. And there's number 2. Sapped a string of 10 Sooners in a row retired. Still, they have only 2 hits in the game. One was the jam shot bloop down the left side by McEnroe Marinas in the first, and the second one was the Gabby Garcia homer out to right. I always thought as a pitcher, one of the most painful things would be to look out at the scoreboard and see more runs than hits. Because you know it's just like one
right,
mistake in there or a bunch of walks or some combination.
Yes, one big mistake. And, you know, now these stats are kind of thrown at you all the time. There's no hiding from it. So every single time, you know, they have runners up, you know exactly what your average is, how many hits you have, all that stuff. Sometimes that can be a little mentally tough as a player to just kind of forget all of that.
There wasn't a fancy LED board out at University Field back in the 2000s.
There was not.
Although as new and as nice as this stadium is, the OU players probably step in here and like, oh, well, playing Double-A this weekend, I guess, compared to Love's Field.
They just have that brand new field. You know, before then, and deservedly so, they absolutely deserve that brand new field. It's very pretty. It's got all the amenities, right?
Looks
you got everything you could want. But before that, their field was not as impressive as this one, or I would put it along the lines of University Field.
Shows you the incredible growth of the sport, especially at the highest level, and in particular, obviously, for Oklahoma. But even for the other teams in the power conferences, how big the jumps have been. You know, it's not just a new version of the same stadium you had before. It's a totally different world, both for Oklahoma and for Mizzou.
Well, I think that's exciting for the sport. It's exciting for the girls, right? They grew up kind of watching all of this and really admiring all these players, and now they are those players.
Good bunt. Crenshaw out from behind the plate. Rockets it down to first, but not in time. Zabid Agbayani. So 2 on for Oklahoma with 2 out. And it brings up Isabella Emmerling. Ten straight retired for McCann, but 2 straight reach now for OU. And the North Carolina transfer Emmerling at the plate. .323 with 14 homers last year as a Tar Heel. Big cut. And Patty Gasso told us that's what you'd see with Emmerling at the plate. She's going to take big swings, kind of thing you notice all around the ballpark. And that the price of that is to take some strikeouts, but in exchange, you get traded back with timely 3-run bombs. Those were her exact words.
Those were her exact words. She was trying to manifest this exact situation.
Funny looking at her down in the third base coaching box, because even though she knows that and she says that, she just watched that 0-1 swing from Emmerling and leaned back a little bit coaching third.
Even when you know it's coming, it's hard not to have a reaction to that.
Strike 3 called. Emmerling goes down on 3 pitches, and McCann wiggles out of a 2-out Oklahoma rally. Third straight 0 on the board for the Sooners, but there's nothing but zeros on the board for the Tigers.
Her change up to her advantage. She's moving the ball around the zone really well, getting ahead of the hitters, and really making Mizzou uncomfortable in the box.
Kara Daly leads off the home 4th. Daly had a strikeout looking her first time. That was the second in the first inning. And now 4 in the game for Landry. See the work that Daly did over her last 6. 3 homers and 13 batted in, better than 2 per game. Right on that one, 1-1. When you were saying that Kara Daly might, and Sam Landry might, for that matter, try not to go to that changeup as much until she gets out in front, because Missouri was struggling to catch up to her a little bit, and maybe she sped up the bat, in particular of Crenshaw, who was able to wait on it and go down the left field line.
Well, you could see that Crenshaw was definitely waiting on that off-speed pitch. That's why she was able to sit back. She wasn't fooled on it at all. Landry really was throwing that a lot in those first 3 innings. So if Mizzou could start to look for that off-speed pitch earlier in the count so they don't have to be worried about how quick that drop ball or rise ball is coming, they could see a lot more success against her.
Landry's 2-2 pitch. At the very least, Missouri is making her work a lot harder these last couple of innings. She was, around 11 pitches per inning on that pace through the first 2 2/3.
And her pitch count is still pretty low, so Mizzou, even not just for this game, but for the entire series, really needs to be more patient in the box, make sure that, she's throwing the ball in the zone and get her pitch count up a little bit higher.
Agbayani made that look easy. The ground ball to Garcia to finish the third, and then to that one to finish the fourth, or to start the fourth, I should say, to Agbayani. Just so smooth.
We talk a lot about OU's offense, but I think in this game in particular, when we talked to Coach Gasso, she said that she really wants to make sure that her defense is sharp. So one play, even a relay from the outfield, making sure that they were crisp and smooth on defense, and I think that they've come out tonight and really done such a great job defensively.
Strike one to Taylor Ebbs, first-year Tiger transfer from Kentucky. She said something that's sort of true, or sort of simple, but obviously true, which is you can only defend balls in play. Can't defend walks, can't defend home runs. And she feels really good about their defense. Wants the pitchers to just be rolling ground balls, let them play. Don't need to be perfect, just don't put folks on base for free. And Landry has done that. No walks, no hit batsmen. Crenshaw officially got a single, by the way, moved up to second on the throw on that in the official scoring. So it's one single to Crenshaw and a reach on error for Claire Cahalan. Wouldn't be surprised to see that Crenshaw hit change to a double at some point, but it is a single in the official book for the moment. Ebbs had a ground out to the first baseman Sanders, leading off the second inning, her first time up. One away now in the fourth. Landry's 2-2 offering.
This is where Landry becomes so dangerous when she has 2 strikes on a hitter. She has such this, arsenal of pitches. She has a great rise ball, this great changeup. She has a drop ball, curveball she can throw in on a lefty's hands. You just have to be prepared for all of it and just stop thinking as a hitter and just see ball, hit ball.
Down and away, full count. The payoff. Do it again.
Great at bat by Ebbs here. Seen a lot of pitches, fouled off a couple really tough pitches from Landry, trying to just make sure she can stay alive and get her pitch. Taylor Ebbs doing everything she can right now to keep that pitch count for Landry going up. See how many pitches she can foul off.
A lot more coaches around the entire softball world, much more cognizant of pitch count, inning workload than they would have been 10, 15 years ago. Just outside, ball 4. And Landry walks just her 7th batter of the entire season.
Great at bat by Ebbs there. Saw him 9 pitches, fouled off some really tough ones, able to get the walk.
Missouri goes to Addie Kohler as the pinch runner. Sophomore from Texarkana, Texas.
Well, and you mentioned the pitch count. That's another way this game has grown. You know, back in the day when I played, it was you had one ace and you'd have a, you know, you only played a 2-game conference series on the weekend, so your ace could throw both games if needed, and you didn't have this pitching staff that you're starting to see. You know, you're kind of embracing that baseball mindset. Mizzou has a pitching staff, and they really kind of try to throw which pitcher is going to, you know, later in the game, who's going to be more effective against what hitter. You see Oklahoma doing the same thing, really trying to have more of a pitching staff as opposed to just one ace.
Stefania Abascado clipped by the pitch. So back-to-back free bases conceded by Landry in Oklahoma.
See, Abascado does a great job. She stays in there. She kind of takes that pitch. It's going to be hard when you're facing a pitcher who's throwing in the upper 60s, low 70s.
The 7th walk of the season issued by Landry just a moment prior to Ebbs. And Abascado becomes the 4th batter she's hit this year. Patty Gasso out, maybe just to see if there's any chance that Abascado leaned into that pitch. Scott Mayer says no. We have seen that called a lot more around the country.
Which I'm a big fan of. I think if you're wearing an elbow guard and you're leaning out over the plate on a ball that could be a strike, even if it's a ball but it wouldn't have hit you, I'm a fan of calling that runner back and making him be in the box and hit that ball.
Ball 1 to Madison Updegrove. Let's look back at the pitch that hit Abascado.
She's definitely crowding the plate. I don't think she leaned into it at all, but I do think she's definitely crowding the plate. She's in the box, totally legal, but
the fact that it's in the course of a natural movement there, I feel like I'm not too concerned with is it over the chalk or not at that point, because you're entitled to stand there in the box.
Yep.
Nobody's saying she can't stand where she stands, and then she's entitled to have her elbows move a little bit while she, in that case, check swing.
That's your natural swing, right? So you're right, it's a natural movement. If she's not leaning that front elbow out to try and get it, I think it hit her back arm, so it wasn't even her front arm that hit.
If she's able to manipulate that, such as to put her back elbow in the perfect spot in the middle of the check swing, I think that's just, you know, at some point you tip your cap.
Absolutely.
Mound visit for Oklahoma. Actually, back-to-back pitches with mound visits, though. There was no coach present for the first one. That was when Patty Gasso came out to talk to Scott Mayer about the pitch that clipped Abascado. So it's the 2nd inning in a row. Missouri has had 2 runners on after they didn't have a base runner. Went 8 up and 8 down to start the game. A Sanders error and a Crenshaw single resulted in runners at 2nd and 3rd in the 3rd inning with 2 out. Updegrove down the right field line, twisting toward the foul pole. It is wrong side of the pole, the foul ball. Madison Updegrove, who in her first week as a collegiate player back in her hometown, has hit a pair of home runs, nearly had a 3rd one that might have popped the top off this place. Landry's 1-1 delivery.
Second time through the lineup, you've seen these Missouri hitters be a lot more patient at the plate. They look a lot more comfortable in the box against Sam Landry.
Updegrove to left. Back goes Pickering with room in front of the track for the 2nd out. Sophie Smith is due up, but looks like Larissa Anderson is going to go to a pinch hitter.
Coach Anderson trying to get some sort of spark coming off the bench, having runners, out there. Doesn't want to leave any runners on bases, and you can't do that against Oklahoma if you want to win.
Hayden Sokolowski, transfer from Oklahoma State, so well familiar with the Sooners, settles into the righty batter's box.
Has her own rival with OU.
Yeah, rivals in the old league, rivals in the new league. And frankly, to the extent that Missouri and Oklahoma is a rivalry, I think it's looked a little more as a rivalry by Mizzou fans than it is by Oklahoma fans. Softball is probably the sport where it feels the truest because, frankly, in football, it's been so lopsided over the years. To third base, handled by McEnroe Marinas, and Missouri for the second straight inning leaves a pair of runners on base. Sam Landry not looking untouchable, but more than good enough. 3-0 Sooners. Pitching a shutout at this point.
We see McCann made a big mistake to Gabby Garcia where she left a ball up in that first inning. Since then, she has really settled in. When she's missing, she's tending to miss low, which is what you're going to have to do against these OU hitters.
It's the bottom of the Oklahoma lineup. And Tia Malloy is pinch hitting for Sydney Barker in the 9 spot. Abigail Dayton and Nellie McEnroe Marinas are scheduled to follow for the Sooners in the visitors' 5th. Malloy, another true freshman. Homered in her first collegiate start back on opening weekend against Cal Baptist. Followed it up with another long ball the next day against Loyola Marymount, but that has gone cold this month, although, to be fair, she hasn't gotten a tremendous number of opportunities. McCann's 1-1 is floated toward second base and taken by Smith. All the way is the first out.
It's a big time out for McCann, right? You want to make sure you come out and you get that number 9 hitter. OU offensive is impressive 1 through 9, but the 1 through 5 hitters are deadly. So you want to make sure that you can get that number 9 hitter, get that first out, and not put any runners on base.
Top of the order in Abigail Dayton now. Had a walk and scored in the first inning, grounded out to shorter last time in the 3rd. She also homered in her Oklahoma debut, opener against Cal State Northridge. Excellent speed, 11 steals in 13 tries, although she was caught against Arkansas last weekend. It's the second time all year. Had a good series nonetheless, 3 for 7 with a double, a walk. Was hit a couple of times. Mentioned she was an All-American last year at Utah, hit .431. She was almost unbelievably consistent from February 24th all the way to the end of the season. Her average never dipped below .430.
That's incredible. We talked about video game numbers. Those are video game numbers.
Those are like AI numbers or something. like you're sending a robot out there and like you programmed it, don't hit 700. It
right.
Unbelievable.
Right.
Let's do 440.
Just stay around the
435, 430. That'll be fine. Dayton toward first and past Walker into right. Oklahoma has its 4th hit. Dayton is aboard for the 2nd time in 3 trips.
I think that's the first time you've really seen Walker look not as comfortable at first base, was on that hit, not knowing, do I have one more step before I got to get back? She could have had, I think she had another step and a half before she would have to retreat back to first base, especially with Sophie Smith playing up the middle as much as she is.
Is first base the most underrated position in terms of difficulty, you think?
Absolutely, because I think, you know, yes, you have to have really great footwork around the bag at all times, but you have to know when you have to let that ball go and rely on your second baseman. You know, especially in softball, a little different than baseball. You got to worry about that bunt situation. Like most of the times that first baseman is crashing. She's not going to sit back and take that throw. So just really having to be a really athletic position in which doesn't get a lot of credit.
Marinas is 1 for 2. Rips it toward third, but foul. We talked about it in the context of Madison Updegrove at short, but if she's able to stay there and keep Kara Daly at third, what an asset as well for Missouri. What a great third baseman Daly has become. And you can see it on that dive. Not only is she covering all of fair territory, she's probably covering 6 to 12 inches of foul territory too.
Yeah, and I think she looked really good as a shortstop early in the year, but you know, she really kind of made a name for herself as a third baseman. She's got really good glove work, really good footwork over there, and covers a lot of ground. She's tall, and she can really make sure she covers that 5-6 hole really well in between for that ball that's hit between the shortstop and third baseman.
Right, you normally don't talk about height as an advantage for an infielder because usually height, you know, has a at least vaguely linear relationship with lack of athleticism. But if you can manipulate that height and move it around, that big frame covers so much more space. Marinas left field. This ball is crushed. Nellie McEnroe Marinas out to the berm and left. A second Oklahoma home run today, and it's 5-0 Sooners in the 5th inning.
The redshirt freshman captain really comes through here. This is a big time hit by her. Really great at bat. She hasn't, you know, she got that base hit in the first inning. Comes back out and gets the home run.
2 last weekend against Arkansas and 1 in the series opener tonight.
That ball left up over the zone, and again, against OU hitters, you cannot leave the ball up in the zone. It's so much easier to hit a home run when that ball is up in the zone.
And if anything, especially a high fly ball like that one out to left is fighting the wind a little bit, certainly not getting a boost from it. Here's Cassidy Pickering, takes a strike.
It didn't stay in the air very long. It got out in a hurry.
If the wind we have to right were blowing out to left, it might have taken that one over the berm. Certainly would have threatened. Over the screen, out of play. You know, I've noticed about this Mizzou softball crowd, very supportive of the team, tough on each other.
Very tough.
Every
crowd.
time a foul ball drops in the seats, there's some guy, and I assume it's not the same guy, but it might be. You got to catch that in the background. Ripped toward first and through into right. 3 straight hits for Oklahoma, a couple through that 3-4 hole on the right side. Cassidy Pickering now 1 for 3, continues what has been a good stretch for her. 5 out of 11 over her last 5 games.
See OU really kind of trying to sit back on McCann's off-speed pitches here. You've seen a lot of balls. They're turning on a lot of the balls, and you're seeing that with these lefty hitters kind of hitting these hard line drives, hard ground balls through the field.
Gabby Garcia is the scheduled hitter. And Oklahoma's going to Cheney Helton as a pinch runner over at first, freshman who has been used primarily as a pinch runner this year. First team All-State softball player in Oklahoma last year, but her high school track experience has been more handy. She was a 3-time Oklahoma finalist in the 200-meter dash. So safe to say excellent speed on the base paths for the Sooners. Now a 5-0 in the 5th. And Garcia, who as it stands has the game-winning hit, just 4 batters into the night, is at the plate. 3-run shot out to right in the first inning, and a smoked line out to second in the 4th inning. In fact, I wonder if her line out was hit even harder with a higher exit velocity than the home run. It wouldn't shock me.
I do think she hit that ball harder than her home run. She got a little underneath the home run, and she's so strong, has such a good swing, she's able to get it out. But that line drive at Sophie Smith in her last at-bat was absolutely destroyed.
Yeah, they say, hey, rookie, welcome to the NFL. That was hey, freshman, welcome to the SEC for Sophie Smith, although it was another freshman welcoming her.
Right.
Toward the middle, Smith can't backhand it, sneaks under her into center. Would have been a tricky play anyway, probably a glove flip to try to get the pinch runner Helton at second. 2 on, 1 out, and that's 4 consecutive hits for Oklahoma.
Helton is very fast and caused a little bit of chaos there with Sophie Smith at second base, knowing she had to get that ball out of her glove really fast. Wasn't able to make the play.
And that's going to be all for Marissa McCann. JC Cruzy is coming out of the Missouri bullpen. She will face Ella Parker on the other side of the break. 2 on, 2 out, or rather 1 out and 2 already in for Oklahoma, up 5-0 in the 5th. Going to be an uphill battle for Marissa McCann this evening. And she had stretches that were really, really good. In fact, she retired 10 Sooners in a row at one time, but that has unraveled for her. Now 6 of the last 8 Sooners have reached base, including 4 straight hits. And that brings JC Cruzy in for just the 3rd time this season. She pitched a scoreless inning with a hit and a walk against Florida State all the way back in mid-February. And a couple of weeks ago in the first SEC series, she pitched against Kentucky in Lexington. No runs on a couple of hits over an inning and a 3rd. And she gets ahead with a strike to Ella Parker.
She's a lot different look than McCann is, right? So Cruzy doesn't throw as hard as McCann does. She really tends to work more down in the zone than a rise ball. So she's a much different look, trying to throw the OU hitters off after having McCann out there for 4 innings.
Parker into center. This is well hit. Langer to the wall, reaches up. It's off her glove and out of the ballpark. A home run for Ella Parker. The first extra base hit in her last 9 games, and it puts Oklahoma in a run rule position. 8-0 Sooners in the 5th.
Well, the home run ball has been deadly for these Mizzou pitchers. You get runners on base, and then they're hitting 2-run, 3-run home runs. She sits back on this ball. Not a great swing on it, but you can tell she's strong enough that that ball is going to get out of the park. Langer right there, not able to make the play.
I wonder if on that replay it didn't even hit her glove, if she hit her elbow against the wall as she was reaching up and therefore didn't even get her glove up to it.
Because she was there, she was in position to make that play if she could have gotten her glove up there.
We talked about that last weekend. I think it was in the Princeton game that Mizzou ended up winning when Claire Cahalan was in center, and she was in position to rob a home run, but she's only 5'1". Kaylee Langer is 5'9", and so has a much easier time getting up over the fence, and wouldn't have even really had to jump for that one, but sort of blocked herself by just knocking her elbow or her forearm into the fence.
Yeah, almost being too close to the fence there. You got to give yourself a little bit of room to be able to maneuver your arms and get up to get that ball.
1 ball, 2 strikes on Sanders. So 2 of those 3 runs are charged to McCann. In the end, she gets 7 earned runs over 4 1/3 innings, which is really not remotely representative of the fight she put up. And I think Oklahoma hitters and Patty Gasso would probably say the same thing.
There were times out there that McCann looked brilliant. I mean, she really, some of her off-speed pitches and some of her rise balls out of the zone to get some swings and misses, she looked really good out there at times. And just, it's when you have those walks, those, little base hits, or you have an error, you get these runners on in scoring position, and 1 deep ball is going to make a really big difference.
It's part of what makes any great team great, and it's what makes Oklahoma whatever you want to call better than great. Because not only do they punish mistakes, as all great teams have to. There's strike 3 called on Sanders, and 1 away, or 2 away, I should say. But on top of that, they are so deep. Their lineup is so good top to bottom that pretty much anybody 1 through 9 can be the one who gets the big blow and really hurts you.
Yeah, I mean, that's everyone in the SEC, right? They all have the ability to put the ball out of the park, but OU just takes it to a different level, so you never get a break. You can't take any pitch off if you're a pitcher for Mizzou in this series, and that can be tough, right? So even if you just miss by a little bit, OU can make you pay 1 through 9 with their hitters.
Elana Agbayani ahead of the count, 1 ball and no strikes. Ground out to second and a single for Agbayani. Takes off speed for a strike. Hawaii native who spent her first 2 seasons of college softball at BYU. So she's actually playing in her 3rd different conference in 3 years because BYU transitioned from the West Coast Conference to the Big 12 between her freshman and sophomore years. It's a bunt that's foul, 2-2. And now she comes to Oklahoma, which of course is transitioning as well. So 3 different conferences and twice playing for teams in their first year in their new conferences. First team all WCC, first team all Big 12. If she could get a first team all SEC at some point, that's a real hat trick.
That's impressive.
Got a couple of years to do it. Pitch is down, count is full. She was 1 out of 9 with 3 walks and a run batted in the sweep of Arkansas in Fayetteville last weekend. Off to a 1-for-2 start. 2 o'clock Central will be underway tomorrow in game 2. And noon on Sunday to close out the series. Be interesting to see how Oklahoma approaches the remaining 2 games from a pitching standpoint. Just missed ball 4. Certainly we wouldn't expect to see Sam Landry start tomorrow.
I think you'll see a pitch by committee tomorrow, and then I would not be surprised, though, to see Sam Landry brought back out for the Sunday game.
Patty Gasso maybe just made a spur-of-the-moment decision to pinch hit for Emmerling because she was on her way to the plate. A lot of times you see the pinch hitter already out of the on-deck circle, but Emmerling was walking up, and JT Gasso, Patty's son, is going to have to come all the way out and say, exactly who did you want here? It's going to be Maya Bland. Bland has spent most of her career as OU's top pinch runner. They have a lot of depth in that regard this year, though, because Bland and Helton are both really good options. A couple of other speedy kids on the bench.
Well, Coach Gasso knows that depth is going to be a really big part of this team going, deep into the SEC season and into the postseason. You really need a lot of depth to be able to come off your bench, provide some sparks if you need it. So giving Bland an opportunity here when the pressure is not as high as it would be necessarily in a, tie ball game or in a postseason game.
Bland is 2 for 16 at the plate this year, though she's walked 7 times. Had a home run against Marshall on the 1st of this month in Norman. You make a good point. It's one of the downsides. I guess I shouldn't say that, but maybe it's the dark lining on an otherwise silver cloud of having such a well-established lineup as OU does, which is maybe a little bit of a surprise considering the roster turnover, but the lineup solidified really early. And Patty Gasso has started largely the same group for the significant majority of games. And as a result, there are kids on the bench who just don't get that many opportunities, especially at the plate. They maybe participate as defensive subs or as pinch runners.
And really good hitters, right? So they're not bad hitters. They're really good hitters. It's just they have this arsenal and this such a good offensive lineup that it's going to be hard to break into that.
OU has been healthy as well in the lineup as compared to in the circle. They've had a couple of minor injuries to deal with, notably Sam Landry, who missed that first SEC series. Bland waves and misses, strike 3. And Julia Crenshaw was throwing down to check on the runner at first base, even though the inning was over. Bottom of the 5th, and it's 8-0 Oklahoma now after a pair of home runs. McEnroe Marinas out to left field, made it 5-0 OU, and Ella Parker snapping out of her power slump. A 3-run shot, rolls over the wall in center. Changes in the outfield for Oklahoma. Abigail Dayton moves from center to left. That makes room for Hannah Kaur to come on in center. And the pinch runner, Shani Helton, stays on in right. So a whole new outfield for Oklahoma, at least a new spot. Dayton, the only outfielder who stays in the game. There's Kaur in center. So I think just about every position player has gotten in this game for the Sooners. Kaylee Langer leading off for Missouri in what could be the final inning for the Tigers. They'll need at least one run here to keep the game going. Langer ropes it toward left, but it is snared by Dayton. One away. That sort of goes against the old adage that the ball is going to find you when you come into the game. It found the only outfielder who is not new to the game.
Just a new position, so maybe trying to give her a different look.
I've always heard that left field is such an easy position to play.
Right,
That's where you stick somebody you can't defend, right?
You're just egging me on right now.
Claire Cahalan in the batter. For the record, that's not a shot at Abigail Dayton. It's a shot at Ashley Moore.
It's a shot at
Ashley Moore only.
Hayes Moore.
Yeah, that's true. Ashley Hayes at the time. Purple Haze, as they called her.
That is not true either.
That was your walk-up song, though.
It was.
Sort of true in passing.
Or a little bit. I switched to 4 non-blondes my senior year.
One strike pitch. Rolled to short, taken by Garcia. This infield defense for OU has been fantastic.
So good.
2 down.
Well, and Coach Gasso mentioned that in the call. She mentioned how good her defense is, and she really wants her pitchers to rely on them, not rely on having to strike everybody out or have to be perfect. And when Mizzou has put the ball in play, the OU defense has looked incredible out there.
So now Julia Crenshaw, Missouri's leadoff hitter, and last hope to keep the game alive. 3 Oklahoma home runs for the 8 Sooners to cross the plate. Garcia, a 3-run shot in the first. McEnroe Marinas with a 2-run bomb out to left in the 5th. And then Ella Parker just over the wall in dead center to make it a 5-run 5th inning and an 8-0 lead. Sooners fans should stick with us. Well, everybody should. And we'll talk to Sam Landry quick as we can after this final out. She has been very good yet again. Reigning SEC Pitcher of the Week. Crenshaw just got a piece. This will be an 8th straight loss for Missouri against Oklahoma. Tigers have not beaten the Sooners since 2012 in Norman. Oh, 0-2 again. To third, McEnroe Marinas. The Sooners are 28-0. A 15th run rule victory in those 28 wins this season for Oklahoma. They cruise past Missouri in the series opener, 8-0. The top team in the country looked apart and wins it in style.